Very excited to be here. Thanks for having us. This is our first big stop on the roadshow, so we'll see how things go here. There we go. So I think talking about Facebook, I want to make sure I introduce Facebook to all of you. And this is the news feed. This is something that people check 14 times a day across their mobile devices, their tablets, their laptops. It's where they discover things that matter to them. They spend about 40 minutes a day here. I'm sure most of you in the room are using Facebook, right? And the opportunity here is not just to, perfect, all right. The opportunity here is, of course, for your brand and for your dealership to be part of this experience while people are there and you have their attention. And the other thing to point out about the news feed, right, if you've ever, I know I've picked up my wife's phone, right, and I've kind of looked at her news feed, she's looked at mine, this is the two of us here. Every news feed is different, right? We have the same, similar sets of friends, but we're engaging with things differently, so our algorithm pushes out a different experience for each person. And similarly, you know, we're two different people altogether, right? And even though as a household we may be in market for a car, what is going to encourage her to click through and take action on something in her feed is going to be very different than what's going to encourage me. What we're going to cover today are three things. I'll take the first part and kind of give you a general sense of the story about what the new marketing opportunity is and why real identity matters. And then Brandon's going to come up and really tie it together and talk about how we can connect this back to your business objectives. So the new marketing opportunity on Facebook, I think, is worth looking at from how media has changed over time. Right? Facebook is a new form of media. The last time a new form of media was introduced that really overtook people's time was back in the 50s when the TV was introduced, right? And people started spending more time with media. It overtook radio. And now we kind of look at what's happening today, and TV, in terms of time spent, is being overtaken by digital, which is both laptop and mobile. But what's interesting here about the digital piece, we break out mobile separately, is that mobile is really driving this growth, right? And is really driving this behavior of people being drawn to the digital space. And it's a key part of what's bringing us success at Facebook, right? We're very proud of these numbers, right? We have a lot of people using Facebook, about 180 monthly users, 180 million monthly users. But the more important piece is that we have people connecting on different platforms, right? On desktop and largely on mobile, with about 104 million people a day. And although these numbers are impressive, I want to make sure that they're meaningful to you guys. So when you look at all these different places of where people are spending their time, it's not just that we have a huge reach, but we also have more time spent on Facebook than all of these other platforms combined. And when you take it to the local level, you have this Super Bowl size audience that's spending a lot of time on our platform. How do you then connect that back to what matters to you guys, right? Selling cars and selling parts for those cars. And that's where our targeting comes in. That's where the data, the rich data, becomes super important. And you can start zeroing in on these different audiences around your objectives. And we'll talk about how you're going to do that in the later section. But whether it's in market, near market, or parts and service, you can really start focusing on these particular sets of people and have a conversation around those goals and objectives. And in opportunity periods, you can then heavy up as well. And we'll talk about how you do that today through your CRM lists and through using our data to build lookalikes, so to build people that look like the person that just bought a car from you and find them here in the local region. One example that is worth mentioning here is more on the brand level, but there's some takeaways here that are going to connect everything we're talking about. Hyundai did a study where they had a large group across the nation, several million people, and they had a holdout group, so they just found these folks on Facebook. They were in market, so they're 6 months away from buying a car, and they held out 3.5 million of them and did not serve them an ad. So they know who they are, but they didn't serve them an ad. And the other group, they did serve an ad to, right? And then over time, the ads were served. They then matched that back to sales, and they found that their cost for conversion was a lot lower than they expected, and the group that was exposed to an ad had a higher propensity to buy a car. But the takeaway here for you guys isn't really these numbers, although those numbers are worth looking at. The takeaway here is that they were able to use our database of people and match that to an in-market intent or signal, because we have a connection with Polk and Datalogix that matches all the information that they have on vehicle registration to the people that are on our platform. So you're able to identify who these folks are on Facebook and whether they're in market, near market, and so on, using all these different segmentations that Polk and Datalogix have. And the other key piece here is when they decided to close the loop and look at the sales, They then match this big group that they parsed out using Datalogix and match that back to their own database, so their own CRM list, and close the loop and saw which one of those folks actually bought a car. Those are the two key points that I think translate to what you guys are doing. How can you target these folks using these data partnerships that we have? And then how can you match your investment or identify who your real customers are on Facebook and continue a conversation with them? So this leads to real identity, right? All this that I'm talking about and everything that Hyundai achieved is only possible through real identity. So when we look at the San Francisco market, and Brandon and I kind of dissect the audience and look at all these folks in San Francisco, using the data that we have, we identify that there's 1.5 million people that are in market for a new or used car, 580,000 Toyota owners, and so on and so on. And these numbers are impressive, but we're going to talk about what you can do with these numbers, right? The first step is kind of separating them out. The next step is actually getting them engaged and passing them down through the funnel. And this leans on this concept of real identity, right? And with the behavior that we have today, especially with me, right? That is me. That is Eddie Viola. And I'm Eddie Viola no matter what device I'm using. So whether I'm using my mobile phone, my tablet, my laptop, you're constantly going to be connecting back to me, a real person. You're not guessing who I am and how I'm navigating the web. You can always connect it back to who I really am. And this is critically important, especially when you start tying back to these ideas of connecting me to, let's say, your CRM list if I was one of your customers. We'll see if this video plays here. Perfect. So what I want to show you here is some of the free tools that we have that you guys can access, right? All this data is very valuable, and it's something that you can actually take a look at. So what I'm showing you here is a video of our Audience Insights tool. It's just something you can access off the web. This example is looking at a Hispanic audience, 25 to 54 in the California area. So you have a lot of options in which you can narrow down and zero in on their interests. But you then start looking at all these different pieces of information that are important or relevant to these groups. What's their demographic? What are their interests? Where do they over-index on page likes? All this kind of interesting stuff that maybe is going to help inform creative or help inform your marketing strategy. But where it gets really neat, I think, is when you start looking at their activity. You see that they over-index, so that blue bar is higher than the gray bar. They over-index on mobile, and they under-index on desktop. So if you're targeting Hispanics, you probably want to focus on a strategy that leans on mobile. But here's where it gets interesting, is with the connection back to Datalogix, you can look at where they over-index and under-index on new cars. And that's just really putting the power of our data in your fingertips to help inform your marketing. You can do that for used cars as well. So the point in all this is that go back to the example about me and my wife, for example, right? Targeting the two of us, even though we're both in the same household, you're going to want to have a different message. But I think taking this to like a broader scale, you look at truck shoppers, for example. You got a wide range of, in the area, potentially different types of profiles for these shoppers. The NFL fan, the workman, the farmer, and so on. You can get information on these folks using the data tools that I just showed you, and be a lot more thoughtful in how you reach and connect with these folks when you're sending them a message, when you're trying to engage them to click to your website or do something else. So in the past, where you may just have kind of one creative and one message or one video that kind of reaches all, and you hope that you can get that done, on Facebook, what you can do is understand what motivates that profile, and then reach them very targeted, and send them a message that is meaningful to them, with a creative and a copy that's actually speaking to them, based on what you know about them, and what you know about other millions of people that are just like them. And this effort isn't difficult, right? The images that you're seeing here is stock imagery. We pulled this off the Toyota site. All we did was kind of organize these categories and fit the right creative with the right, the right profile. So I'm going to pass it off to Brandon, all right? And we're going to talk about how you actually bring this together and connect it back to your business objectives. But the thing I want to kind of reinforce here is that take notes, but we're going to hand out at the end of the presentation, I think we have a digital copy of our best practices. It's a 20-page sheet that talks about everything, from targeting to creative and so on. So the entire playbook of how you get this done and how you take these ideas and connect it to your business objectives is all very nicely packaged in this one piece of material. So Brandon?
Thanks, Eddie. So I think Eddie's piece of the presentation is awesome because it really shows, just basically the overall value of Facebook and sort of the marketing opportunity that you have there. But, all of that is useless if you don't have something that you can go back to your dealership and really sort of activate right now. So, what we're going to go through is basically some new direct response solutions that we have at Facebook. in an effort to sort of drive those business objectives. So before we do that, I think we should take a step back. And up until this point, Facebook has been viewed as a platform that aligns with your social objectives. And the success metrics that have gone with that are likes, comments, shares. And while there's certainly a place for that in building a community and engaging with people that are in your area, when we really took a step back and looked at it, we realized that we were kind of limiting ourselves, right? So I think what you're going to see over the next few months with a number of different enhancements that we have is sort of this movement towards real business objectives. And when you actually run campaigns on Facebook, what you should be measuring those campaigns against is your other display buys, your search buys. So what we're going to want to look at is leads, conversions, traffic, that sort of thing. And it's really in an effort just to actually sell vehicles, right? So when we actually did that, we realized that, we were kind of limiting ourselves, like I mentioned. Before we were just talking to fans, now you have a much bigger audience to speak to. And we're going to go into some targeting solutions to sort of do that, but before we get into that, let's talk objectives. So, no ad is really worth running unless you know what the objective is and it lines up with your campaign. So, before you do anything on Facebook, you have to set an objective. And I think that objective should align with what you're trying to accomplish. So, I promised Eddie that I would put a purchase funnel in here because we can't have a digital meeting without it. But, you have a number of different options: page likes, video views, page post engagement, clicks to website. And I think, each of these serves a purpose, right? So if you have a launch of a vehicle, these people probably aren't that close to buying yet. So you're going to want to measure yourself against video views and page post engagement. Whereas if you have a weekend sell-a-thon around Thanksgiving, you're actually trying to drive traffic to your website. So when it comes to targeting at a local level, there's a number of different ways that you can sort of develop your audience. And the first of which, and we've seen that it's actually being underutilized right now on our platform, is using the people that you already know. So there's two main ways you can do that, and the first is your CRM list. So, you're already using this to do email blasts and to do direct mail. You can also use those same lists, upload that to our platform, and find those exact people and target them on Facebook. You can also retarget people that have already been to your website. So these are people that have already shown some intent and looked at vehicles on your site, and you can message them back, and you can continue that conversation. And what you're going to do is basically upload all of the information that you have on these people, whether that be phone numbers or addresses, email addresses, and you're going to take our very small pool of people that we have, and you're going to match that up, and you're going to develop a custom audience. And you can use that custom audience in a number of different ways. But what's really cool, and Eddie kind of mentioned it, he stole my thunder a little bit, is sort of the idea of developing lookalikes based on those people. So because we do have so much data on each and every user on Facebook, we're able to analyze them in a million different ways so that when you do get someone that converts on your website and goes and requests a quote, we're able to actually build lookalikes off of those people. So it's really in an effort to achieve targeted and efficient reach and scale. So you're not necessarily just like buying a homepage takeover somewhere and sort of spraying and hope that it works. It's really targeted reach. So, quick example, this guy's in the market for a Camry. We look at his profile and we look at his behavior on Facebook. We build people that look just like him. Similarly, she recently purchased. We build more people like her. So, when you put it all together, there's a number of different inputs that could develop who you're talking to on Facebook. So you've got our data, you've got partner categories, we mentioned Polk and DLX that identify near and in-market shoppers, and then you've also got your CRM lists and your retargeting off of your website. You run that through the filters that we've talked about, whether that be interest, location, certainly location, something that you're going to want to do at a tier 3 level, demographics, and then also behaviors. So it's funny, a buddy of mine actually just started a beer company, and it's in Los Angeles, and he's going after like the 25 to 34 like surfer, and he was able to actually like develop a campaign that spoke specifically to that age bracket and people that like surfing, and the results were awesome. So when you put all that together, you're really getting your local Scion car shopper. So in summary, as far as targeting goes, you're using your data, third-party data, and our data, and then in certain opportunity periods that you really want to ramp up, you're using lookalikes. So in terms of messaging and placement, everyone's very familiar with this space, the endemic sites. This is just a snapshot of a Kelley Blue Book Toyota page. And the reason that people put so much effort to be in this space is because that is perceivably where the in-market shoppers are. And it makes sense if you're going to be judged against those lower funnel metrics, whether it be leads or inventory searches. But I think we can all agree that this is a very competitive space, and it's not necessarily just between OEMs, but it's competitive between Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3. Not to mention, I don't think it's necessarily the best user experience. But what's crazy to actually look at is when it comes to reach and those in-market shoppers on those sites, here's just a quick comparison of the in-market shoppers that we have on Facebook compared to those same shopping sites. Crazy stat. So another one to kind of take a look at is how much time people are spending on those sites. 4.5 minutes, 5.5 minutes on a KBB and an Auto Trader. And then when you go to Facebook, those same people are spending over 37 minutes. So it's a chance to sort of engage with them where they're spending the most time. In that vein, we've really put a lot of emphasis recently on getting in the news feed. So I'm sure a lot of your dealerships have perhaps messed around with being on the right-hand side. But as far as the news feed and engagement, this is where you're going to get the most engagement. So that's something that we're really stressing, and I think you can see just basically like the elegance and sort of the style of the ads and how much more runway you really have to do a lot of things. When it comes to product, there's a number of different solutions that we have. I'm going to point out basically a few that I think could work at a Tier 3 level. And the first is designed to basically drive site off platform. So this entire image is clickable. It's got a strong call to action. It's got rich imagery that really pulls the person in. And this would be best for sort of driving those lower funnel conversions on your website. We've talked a lot about video. YouTube is up here. Certainly people are consuming more and more video, especially on mobile. We've got a video unit that you could use, and when you upload it natively, I think the experience is awesome, as opposed to embedding, let's say, from YouTube or linking out to YouTube. And previously, sort of the hurdle that we heard was that a lot of video campaigns are judged on view count, right, on YouTube. So something that we've actually launched here in the last couple weeks is a counter on native videos on Facebook. So, as far as that comparison goes, that's no longer a hurdle. So when it comes to video, same rules apply, right? 15 to 30 seconds, something very quick that engages people right away. And then finally, something that we're really seeing the popularity rise in is an offer product, right? So we're actually pulling the offer into the unit, and I think this works best with your CRM lists, let's say on a parts and service type of campaign, right? So people that are actually, getting out of Toyota Care and are going to need to actually get their vehicle serviced. So you can take that list and you can upload it to Facebook on Power Editor, and you can message these people with a private offer. So when they actually click the get offer, they're going to get an email from Facebook after that sort of prompts them to take the next step. So these are all very much Tier 3 type of solutions that we've developed here recently in an effort to really drive those business objectives. And then finally, tracking and optimizing. So, what's great about digital is that you can see exactly what is working, and we're committed to that. So there's 3 main areas that we track. And the first is tracking those conversions on your site. So I would stress you to look into our tracking and our pixels. It's very easy to do on your site. And the advantage of doing that, specifically the conversion tracking, is when you're actually buying ads on Facebook, you're able to optimize your buy towards those lower funnel actions on your site. So as opposed to like a simple cost per click type of bidding method, you're actually finding people that are more likely to convert based on the people that have already converted. And you can only really do that if you have our pixel on your site. Secondly, we've already talked about retargeting people that have already been to your site. So that's really accumulating those audiences and remarketing to them constantly. And finally, cross-device reporting. We've talked so much about mobile today, and I think it's especially valuable to talk about that when it comes to buying a car, right? Because it's the second biggest purchase these people are going to make in their life. So it's not like they're getting an ad on their phone and pulling the trigger and immediately purchasing, right? They're going back and forth, they're looking on their desktop, they're mobile. So you really need the ability to sort of cross-device track. And because we're based on people and not cookies, we can always trace that back and sort of follow the storyline in terms of ads. Here's a quick stat that sort of goes back to the whole idea of optimizing your buy based on those lower funnel purchases and activities. So when you do that, as opposed to a simple cost per click type of method, we're seeing 68% more conversions. So that's really getting smart, and it's not all that difficult to sort of get yourself set up for success. So putting these ideas into action, right? I mean, I think we've been trying to develop a playbook that you can take home with you and you can use and you can activate relatively easily. And there's 4 basic steps, right? And we've kind of gone through them. And it's defining objectives and aligning those with whatever the campaign is. It's setting the targeting, making sure that you're talking to a local, relevant audience. It's using the right message, using the right message and product combo to really engage the potential consumer. And then finally, it's closing that loop, tracking and optimizing, and to be totally honest, it's doing it all again. And it's constantly learning what works in your area. So in terms of building the foundation, some things that you can do right away. I've talked a lot about the pixels, and I didn't really want to get into it too much because you guys are probably a little tired at this point, and we don't really want to talk about that. But there's 2 basically main pixels that you can get, and you can get up and running. One would be a conversion pixel and the website custom audience pixel. And then integrate your CRM data, right? So that's kind of the low-hanging fruit, in our opinion. These are people that you already know and that you have a relationship with. And then finally, it's just optimizing to business objectives, right? Facebook should be held to the same standards that you hold all of your digital and your search buys. So with that, that kind of concludes our presentation. Happy to take any questions that you guys may have. Yeah.
You mic these folks up. I'll start in the back and work my way forward. How's that?
On the measurement piece, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. On the measurement piece, is Facebook helping auto advertisers track online ad exposure to dealership visits?
I'm sorry?
Is Facebook helping online advertisers track online ad exposure to dealership visits?
So there is a way that we can do sort of a sales matchback. As far as scaling that up and using it across the board with everyone that advertises, we're not necessarily there yet. So as of right now, it's simply tracking conversions on your site is probably the deepest that we'd be able to go. We have done some experimental campaigns with some larger brands, and I think we're getting there. We certainly realize like that's the ultimate solution, right? Actually tracking exactly to sales. So we're getting there, but currently no.
And to location, I think, to your point, right? So actually like tracking back to someone physically going on the dealership. I think the great advantage that all of you have over a Sephora inside a mall that's on the 3rd story, right? All those businesses are stacked and it's a very small footprint. It's very tough to kind of match that location back. But with a dealership, because you have such a large landmass, at some point, right? We can actually match back activity to the physical world to what you did in the digital world. So great question. You're forward thinking.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. It's really fabulous to see how far the platform is evolving and the speed at which it's doing it. Struck by the ability to now take our internal data sources and match that into Facebook, something I haven't heard before, and kind of revolutionary for the Facebook perspective because you already know who the people are.
Sure.
So maybe you could just expand a little bit about that because that was, you kind of glossed it over, but that actually is a non-trivial point.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Want to touch on how that works and then?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, essentially what you're going to do is you're going to upload those CRM lists that you have. And, typically we're not seeing 100% match in terms of identifying Facebook users off of the information that you have. It's probably closer to 60, 70, 80%, depending on how complete your information is, right? So for each person, you're not necessarily getting every data point, but that's typically sort of the match rate that we're having. Once that happens, you would develop an audience within your ad account on Facebook, and those are basically the people that you can talk to. So it's a clean process.
The key
And
being
let me touch
real
on
name.
it. Oh, sorry.
The key being real name.
Multiple data points, right? So real name of course is a starting point, right? But email address, phone number, there's a lot of different ways because of all our other data partnerships and all the information we have. You can match that several different ways. But I think an email address is probably where we get our best match. I think the other 2 points to mention here is one, the security in that process. So we hash the data, which means when you upload it, we don't see the list. We don't even keep the list. It just kind of gets scrambled, and then the scrambled set is then recognized by our system, and just through the scramble, it kind of figures out who those audiences are, and then builds an audience for you, and puts that in your account. I think the other point about that is start to imagine what you can do, right? Instead of just having one big list, right? Now you have your parts and service list, and you have your Camry list, and you can start building all these subsets and keep adding to it. Which is just extraordinary, right? I mean, I think to your point, right? Very revolutionary, right? Very powerful for all you guys to have a very direct conversation with people that you know are engaged with your dealership.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on that, sorry, I know it's kind of a hot topic, but I think previously advertisers were very campaign driven, but we really see the platform now as something that could be always on and constantly building by retargeting off of websites and by just continuously adding to that CRM list.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding uploading CRM data or putting a pixel on a dealer's or OEM site, is that information that's captured then exclusive to that particular dealer or OEM, or is it then shared and that customer is identified as an in-market shopper?
I was hoping you could speak up on that last part. We didn't catch I didn't catch the sharing.
Does the information remain exclusive to the partner, or is it shared with other
So
people
that would
looking for
remain
in-market
within your
shoppers?
specific ad account ID, so that will not be shared outside of anyone that's advertising from your account ID.
Yeah.
So your specific dealership.
However, there are situations, and when we all get to that point as a group, then we can explore it. But there are ways, for example, Toyota National, to share information of people that have visited their site that can then pass that down to tier 2 and potentially tier 3 and start sub-segmenting all that. So you have this massive list that tier 2 would be using, and then eventually sub-segment that even further. So down the line, that may be a possibility.
Yeah,
but
that's
for
something
now,
we're working on, and Eddie's going to get in trouble for mentioning that.
sorry.
Yeah, that's a great point, Eddie. And I know we're starting to do some of that now with our local Tier 2 agency where we're retargeting folks who are coming to our dealers' websites for broader
Right.
marketing efforts. So perfect timing.
In addition to the share, as far as
Sorry. There you go.
in addition to the share, just on the concern for our clients, as far as that's concerned in the database, as you stated, you hash the data and pull it, and you never see it. So the protection and the privacy of our clients, as far as that's concerned, in that data is safe as well.
Yes. Yeah. So all you're really getting is you're inputting your CRM list, and the output is this cluster or this group of people that is now available in your ad account to do something with. There's nothing else that's kind of being stored or saved outside of that data. So you're loading it, it's getting hashed, it's creating this list, it's putting it in your account, and then you roll with that.
Yeah.
Very smart questions. It seems like we're all kind of starting to get it now. And we have a little
we got
cheater
one
in the
more.
back, but I think, Alex, you want to have another question? Yeah, sure.
This is kind of a do you beat your wife or still beat your wife question. You've just said that you're adding some new metrics, getting away from the likes. So does the likes as a metric of success, is that saying that you view it as being less important, less relevant, or?
I don't think so at all. I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Social objectives are not out the window at all. We've just sort of incorporated business objectives as well.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what you're trying to do, right? If you're trying to actually drive sales, it's probably not the best thing, but I think there's a lot of other sort of type of efforts that go on within a dealership that could be based on likes, and there are other advantages to gathering fans and accumulating likes, right? Because when it goes into our algorithm and you're bidding, if something has more likes, it tends to actually perform better and get spit out a little bit more. So there is still a need for that, yes.
Okay, we have another question in the back here. Thank you.
You got to get in the shade, man. It's a little cooler right here.
Hey, can we turn the presentation off and maybe turn the lights up just a touch? Thank you.
My question was just on, I had seen that there was a third party, so you don't have to put your list through a third party for that information. You can just submit it straight to Facebook, and that
Your
create the
CRM list?
Yeah, the CRM list.
Yeah, you can upload it directly yourself.
Okay, just like Excel spreadsheet form, or?
I don't know how you upload it. I would imagine a spreadsheet, but
We can sort of give you some handouts that go through all of that.
Okay.
Absolutely. But I'm pretty sure spreadsheets work.
Brandon, we're losing your mic button.
Oop, sorry.
Question in the back?
Might as well get up here with it.
Mic 5, light it up, please, and then there should be a little switch on there. Just slide it upwards. Sorry about that.
Hello?
There we
Oh,
go.
yeah.
So, your algorithm, I'm feeling like if you're trying to sell something organically without paying for it,
Yeah.
you don't get as much reach. Where if you're just posting, hey, this is a great picture,
Yeah.
you'll get a little bit more reach. Is that in my mind, or is that true?
No, that's not in your mind. I think that's absolutely true, right? And I think that the way that I understand it, at least, right? I've been a Facebook user for a long time. I followed the company for a long time. We're having tremendous growth, right? I mean, you saw the numbers, right? I mean, a lot of people are using Facebook, and that newsfeed real estate has kind of stayed the same. So there's all this competition in the newsfeed. And when I look at my experience, right, of my mom and my family and my friends and all of it, like they're taking precedence in there. And that real estate hasn't changed, but yet the number of users and now the number of brands and the number of advertisers have grown. So what we showed here is the approach to kind of bubble up into kind of the priority of the newsfeed. Organically, you're competing against my mom, which my mom's going to win, right? And that's tough, right?
As far as like us, whoa, that's really loud. Scraping messages for like salesy type of copy, no, that's not happening.
So we're probably not going to do the Q&A at the end, folks, so I'd really love if you had any other questions, please ask them now. A lot of these are going through our heads, and some of the other folks in the room would love to hear the answer as well. So any other questions in the back? Okay, well, let's have a big hand for Facebook. Thank you very much,
thank you,
gentlemen.
guys.
Thanks, everyone.